Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome. Now, I know that some of you have afternoon because I'm in the afternoon myself. And I know that at least one of you has the morning because I'm speaking to my guest who is in Brazil, where it is morning. But this whole show will be live streamed later when in the UK and this part of Europe, it will be evening. So I have to have this all-purpose introduction. Anyway, meet our guest. It's Fernando. Oh, and he's got too many. I'm going to have to reduce. Yeah, that happens if you open. That is because you've got sound coming out of a speaker going back down a microphone. And we've lost your picture.
Sorry, just wait a second.
Oh, now we've gone. Back to me then. These are the delights of technology, aren't they? Well, I suppose without it, we'd never be able to do anything like this at all, would we? I mean, imagine talking to Brazil live. Here he comes. He's coming back. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
sorry, I got confused. There was a bit of a confusion here.
Yeah, well, that happens if you open another channel. You can't watch the show and be on it without feedback.
Okay.
That is a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how the devil are you?
Just fine, thanks. Well, as fine as one can be in such dark times we're going through right now, especially in my country, if you've been following the news.
I have, yes. You've got a really bad outbreak of COVID, haven't you?
Yeah, and if only that was the only problem, because there's this whole political situation which is all tangled, intertwined with COVID, and feeding off each other.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you about that in a minute, but for the moment, if you want a bit of a laugh, our Minister of Health, the new one, has just caught COVID himself. He's double vaccinated, but he's still got it. He's positive. So it won't harm him very much, but he is positive, which means that he's got to isolate. So he won't be he won't be making too much trouble for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's kind of hard because these times, usually when politicians get infected, you kind of get the feeling that it serves them right. Like you shouldn't, humanely speaking, you shouldn't, but you kind of do. Yeah. Our president has just he had COVID last year, but then he's now going through other problems like intestinal problems, and the whole country was like celebrating, like yeah.
Well, that's very cruel.
Yeah, it is, but then again, like the things they've done to us, like they kind of granted. Like, yeah, I can understand that. Yeah.
Yes, I can understand it too. But tell us, am I going to call you Fernando or Ferdinand? Which do you prefer?
Let's go with Ferdinand. Yeah, it's my stage name. And it suits better the English speaking world as well.
Okay, I rather like Fernando though. Never mind. So tell me, Ferdinand, how did you get to be the Ferdinand that you are today? Tell us about your journey, because I know it's an interesting one.
Yeah. Talking about religion, like I used to be. Well, I was raised a Catholic. Brazil is a traditionally very Catholic country. And what can you hear me? Like you've disappeared.
No, I've put you into screen. That's all. So that you can talk to us like a star.
All right. So I don't to share the spotlight. Yeah. Yeah, I was raised a Catholic, and I used to be the strictest of my family. I'd go to masses, to service. I used to be like very conservative, but the very, I think the kickstart of my breaking away from the Catholic Church was my sexuality. Like when I was a teenager, because I started discovering myself as gay, what I am, and it just doesn't jive with Christianity. So I started questioning all this dogma, like why do I have to follow this and that? And from there, well, it just got me beyond like my sexuality is not a problem. It's a problem according to this book. So let's leave this book behind. But then there's more. Like why can't women control their reproductive rights? Well, it should be their right to do that. About science, like the mere idea of faith, like come and think of it, the idea that you should believe something without evidence, without question, unconditionally, the whole idea of unconditionality became a problem to me, and it just went on from there. Like it was at first it caused me trouble with my family because it's mostly Catholic, but I've also got some I've got two aunts who are evangelical, which is yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
It's different,
And
but
it all,
just as
yeah, over here in Brazil, a little worse because evangelicalism in Brazil, like I tend to talk to my Anglo-Saxon friends and everyone, like, if you think fundamentalism is a problem of Islam, come over to Brazil and talk to evangelicals. Like, literally, every week there are news of evangelicals burning down voodoo temples in Brazil. It does happen. You've got a whole evangelical lobby in Parliament, trying to impose laws and install some kind of a theocracy, of a Christian theocracy. Like, there's literally no difference between them and Islamic fundamentalists. They're just smaller. They're just smaller for now.
Yeah. You know what I say? Because I have a lot of conversations like this. And one of my favorite expressions is, why does the clergy think they've got a right to stick their noses into our genitalia?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What business? What's it got to do with them?
It's the thing is, I tend to look at religious fundamentalism not through really a religious point of view, like I used to nowadays. I see it mostly as a political and economic movement. Like, they're a political lobby. They're after power. And if they're after power, they need a common enemy. They're no different from fascism. Yeah, and control.
Yes.
So they need a common enemy, like, and it's really easy to marginalize sexual minorities. Like, there is a stigma, you just pump it up. And plus, you instill internal fear, because people do keep thinking, well, am I this? Could I ever be like them? So am I unholy? So you put people in this this state of mind control. It's easier to control people's minds when they're afraid of themselves and of others. It happens. There was this documentary I was watching like a few years ago. It was called Improper Conduct, about the persecution of homosexuals in Cuba back in the day. I am a left-winger, but I'm highly critical of left-wing authoritarianism, just as I'm critical of right-wing authoritarianism. I'm a libertarian. And, Cuba is a dictatorship. It is. Its regime has conquered a lot of social advancements for the people, but we can't deny it's a dictatorship. So yeah, I'm sorry for any apologists that might be there, but and this anyway, I digress. This documentary was talking about the way they instilled fear of homosexuals and used it as a tool to make people afraid and make them more subservient. Like there was this soldier who was saying people were actually afraid of shaking each other's were afraid of shaking each other's hands and taking too long, or having too long of a shake, because they might become they might suspect that they're gay. They might come under suspicion.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's sex is usually the tool to go for. Like if you're an authoritarian of any kind, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You're right. What a religion needs is to divide and rule. And if you can
Hmm.
divide society up into these good people who are like me and these bad people who are not, then you're on a
Hmm.
winner from the point of view of a
Hmm.
religion. You wanted to play
Yes.
us your first hit song. Shall I screen that now?
Right. Yeah. Do you want some context, or should I give the context later? Just let people listen to it and then explain.
I think the context first would be the way forward.
All right. The song came about to me like it was in 2019 actually. Uh, it was just before the gay prides. Like we were on the eve of LGBT Pride, the day of LGBT Pride, and I was reading about Sylvia Rivera, who was a street drag queen in the United States, and she was a great leader of the LGBT resistance and one of the first trans rights fighter. And she came to question the very movement because the LGBT movement has become very gentrified and dominated by richer white LGBTs. And she was like, no, I want to represent the poorer ones, like as a true left winger. I want to represent. She was a prostitute, street prostitute, and the song talks about that. Yeah.
Wow, yes, because in this country, a drag queen is a bloke dressed in women's clothing. That's rather different, isn't it? Anyway,
Yeah. Go on.
here she is coming up.
Rising from the streets of the barrio echo the husky cries of the supposedly meek. Deviate you've heard of in jokes but always sought not to see. Finely polished razors stick out at delicate looking hands ready to strike or caress. Bearers of the curse of unholy love we cannot suppress. Huddling repulsive rejects, no we ain't going nowhere. Rising from amid us a star leads us as we strike ahead. Rivera, Rivera, estrella del amanecer. Rivera, Rivera, guardiana de nuestro poder. Quémanos con tu rojo ardor, fuerza de nuestro dolor. La sangre vertida, semillas hará florecer. Women, men, all stars on me striking in the face of the holy laws we dare to exist. From her loving hands we all sip the nectar of the perfect. Unapologetic, she strides and screaming into your face. She says you'd better quiet down. Feel your pettiness now get crushed by her too long suppressed shout. Can't you see we're one and the same? Why do you spit at my face? On your public image with justice stain you want to erase. Rivera, Rivera, estrella del amanecer. Rivera, Rivera, guardiana de nuestro poder. Quémanos con tu rojo ardor, a fuerza de nuestro dolor. La sangre vertida, semillas hará florecer. orquídea de las calles, tú cabalgas y almas despiertas de los mártires del odio santo, los sin memoria, sin nombre o historia. Rivera, Rivera, estrella del amanecer. Rivera, guardiana de nuestro poder. Quémanos con tu rojo ardor, a fuerza de nuestro dolor. La sangre vertida, semillas hará florecer. Menos simple estás, menos simple estás, menos simple estás, menos simple estás.
Let me take that down. That was fantastic. I love the Brazilian rhythm there. What sort of rhythm is that? Is that, it's not a bossa nova, it's not a samba. Is it a...
No. Honestly, it's not even Brazilian. Actually,
Right.
actually, since it's an homage to Sylvia Rivera, and she was of Caribbean descent. She was from Puerto Rico. I decided to give it a Caribbean jive, like a Caribbean vibe to it, like. So and even I'm singing in Spanish, not in Portuguese. There is there's even this stereotype. I remember back when I was in England. Everyone was expecting me to speak Spanish because many people believe we Brazilians speak Spanish. We don't.
No.
But I'm singing in Spanish because it was one of her languages, so I decided to use both English and Spanish.
Yes, excellent. And the singing is fantastic. You've got a great
Thank
voice.
you.
And how did you come up with that? The lyrics and the melody? What is that? Do you sit down at a keyboard or what? And do you do the lyrics first and the music later, or is it the other way around?
Well, they usually come all at the same time to my mind, and it's usually like the composition process is really, I say it's more passive to me. It's not really active. I can't sit down and say, well, now I'm going to write a song about this. No.
We have a connection problem. Aha. This happens between us and Brazil. Here he's back. He's back. Your connection.
Sorry,
that was your connection went down.
Yeah. But yeah, as I was saying, like what happens is I usually listen to someone say a sentence, or I see something, and it just sparks it.
Yeah.
And then the song starts coming to my mind. All done. All I have to do is sit down and write it down. Yeah.
You grab that little saying with your net or whatever, or butterfly net, and then work on that, and it builds up into a song.
Yeah, that's it. And usually the melody and the lyrics come to my mind like together at the same time, and that was it. Yeah.
Because a lot of songwriters have a partner, don't they? They work in a team, and one does the music, and lyrics. But you're obviously a one-man expert at the whole thing. Brilliant.
Yeah. I do talk to the producer, and then because I need other instruments, I can only play the piano. So I come to the producer and say, well, okay, then I describe what I want. Yeah.
Yes.
And he puts it together.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And he provides you with suitable session musicians. Great.
Yeah.
So, Sylvia Rivera, a campaigning woman wanting proper human rights for the LGBTQ, and you're a bit of a campaigner yourself, aren't you? You're a campaigner against your fundamentalist right-wing government. Tell us about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, back in actually, I started my political campaigning back in the day when we were under Dilma. I don't know how closely you follow Brazilian politics, but we used to have a so-called left-wing government, but which was actually allied with religious fundamentalists, and was not really left-wing at all. It was like really pro-market. And
yes.
Well, anyway, I started my political campaigning under Dilma Rousseff, who was the president then.
It's funny you should say that.
Say something?
Yeah, it's funny you should say that, because in the USA as well, they have what they think is left-wing.
Yeah.
Not left-wing.
Not really.
No.
It's actually to the right of British right, what they call left in the US.
I used to say a long time ago, when I was a minor politician myself, I used to say that in America they have a right-wing party and a more right-wing party.
Yeah,
And
basically.
They're complaining that it's socialism, and they've never experienced it at all. Although recently with Bernie Sanders, I think he could be described as a genuine socialist.
Yeah, myself, I wouldn't even go that far, because if you actually look at his proposals, he's more of a social democrat, like a Scandinavian-styled social democrat. Because nowadays, from the 20th century on, when we use the word socialism, we're actually referring to the Leninist definition of it, which is like first-phase communism.
Yes.
So when the media talk about Bernie Sanders or even Jeremy Corbyn and call them socialists, they're actually trying to conflate their brands of social democracy with first-phase communism, which is not really the same thing. Myself, I do favor communism. I would describe myself as a communist, albeit a democratic one. I don't believe in the kind of communism that we had in the 20th century. But even so, I think we need to be more precise in political debate, because the way the media portrays it is really appalling.
Oh yes, the media is mostly controlled by businessmen. In other words, right wingers, and what they want to do is demonize anybody who's not like them. So of course they make out that socialism is really communism. It's like for them it's like a sheep in wolf's clothing. They think that the socialism is just a coat that's on top of this real rabid communism idea, which is not
which is really not. And even under the umbrella of communism, we've got so many different approaches to it. Like the kind of communism that existed in the 20th century, if you can call it communism at all, it was completely different to the kind of communism most communists promote today. Like Stalinism is not usually cherished nowadays, and for good reason. I'd really like to see more debate on that, more proper debate. But anyway, I was just talking about my country. We used to have this Workers' Party government, which came to be elected with a social democratic agenda. But then once they took power, they swept it all off and adopted a 100% capitalist agenda. And they also embraced fundamentalist Christians. So they used to be pro-LGBT. In their discourse, they still are. But in practice, they were the ones who banned anti-discrimination campaigns in schools under the pressure of fundamentalists. And we actually got the scene of our pro-LGBT and left-wing, president saying that she wouldn't allow gay propaganda. Well, she said what she said was actually we won't allow the promotion of sexual orientations in schools. That's what she said. I started my sorry.
They label the teaching of facts as propaganda. I mean,
that's crazy. It's demented. Anyway, that's when I started my political campaign, and I started in the LGBT movement against fundamentalists. Then I got involved with the Socialism and Freedom Party, became a registered member and started, campaigning for social justice in general, like more funding for schools and, for healthcare, because it's a real problem in Brazil. Like we have a public healthcare system that really doesn't work. We're actually forced to pay for private insurance, and I don't think we should be.
No.
And the whole agenda of social justice, I started fighting for it. Of course, things have got a lot worse since then.
Yes.
Now we've got a fully fundamentalist, fascist government actually in office,
COVID denying,
and
vaccine,
COVID denying. Yeah.
Anti-vax.
Yeah, like, and his hypocrisy is so blatant because he actually came to power with the discourse of an anti-corruption discourse, because there was corruption under the Workers' Party government. There was corruption before them as well, but yeah. And Bolsonaro actually came to power saying, "I'm going to end corruption," and we've just found out that his vaccine denying, all his denial of vaccinations, was because he was favoring this particular vaccine company that was producing vaccines at a higher price so that he could cash in, on the scheme. So yeah, and he's the anti-corruption guy. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Well, what he meant was, I'm anti other people's corruption.
Yeah, basically.
So, what have you done? You've done street protests, have you? Or
a lot. Your
activity.
Lately, there's been a lot of street protests against this government, especially since, from the beginning, actually, but especially since these corruption scandals, involving vaccination have come out. Like, we've done protesting, a lot of protesting, and what's really interesting is now you're seeing right-wing people and even right-wing parties on the streets with us protesting this government, because like it is, it's actually a good thing. Like, it's a big tent pro-democracy movement. I just find it kind of rich, because these so-called right-wing Democrats actually campaigned for Bolsonaro. They actually, all of the center right campaigned for Bolsonaro. And they knew he was a dictatorship supporter. They knew he was pro-torture. He said it multiple times. They knew he was a homophobe. He was a racist. But they didn't care. And that's something that really bothers me, because usually democracy is just an empty word people wave around whenever it suits them. But when it actually comes to practice, people will honestly will normally go for they'll go for the dictator that suits them, economically speaking, if they have to. Yeah, and that is a problem in the right and also in the left. Yeah, I have to say that.
It's one thing to have ideals, principles before you're elected that you can put into your campaign material, and then when you get elected, you can say you've been elected on a mandate. But then you like to, once you're in power, you like to quietly forget all that and think of ways in which you can stay in power. So at that point, you start fiddling the democratic system and making it harder for your enemies to vote, for example.
Yeah. And silence them, like, even in debate, like, it's yeah, I don't know, it's rich. That's what I'm saying. Like, these right-wingers were all for Bolsonaro. And then once his government started going down, then they're joining us and we're pro-democracy. And I'm like, sure you are, darling. Yeah.
So let's leave this mucky subject of politics and talk about music again, because that's a big thing with you, isn't it? And
Yeah, it is.
you've had some success in the UK too, haven't you? Tell us about that.
Yeah, Rivera was my first single. I released it last year, and I submitted it to the LGBTQ music chart, and it
Mhm.
actually reached #2. And it stayed in the chart for over 50 weeks. I was kind of surprised, actually.
50.
Sorry?
50, is that 50, or am I hearing 15?
Yeah, no, 50, 50, yeah.
That's almost a year.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's
close to
that's
a
got,
year.
that's got to be some incredible success, hasn't it?
Well, yeah, I don't know, kind of, but I liked it that it got covered in Dutch media as well. Like there was this PD radio, a Dutch radio, that also reported on the song. It got covered in Brazilian LGBT media as well. Like and yeah,
Spain, Spain, the
sorry.
Caribbean. I'm thinking of Argentina, other Spanish language countries.
No, not that I've seen. Not that I've seen. Maybe it's just escapes me, but I haven't seen it. But if you actually, I do keep track of the streamings, and
Yeah.
there are quite a few Spaniards listening to it as well, and Hispano-Americans as well. So yeah.
Yes. Oh.
And I got happy because it's a message I want heard. Yeah. More than just my work. I think, yeah, it's important.
Yes. It is right. You're right. It's not just good music. It's a message, which is a powerful combination. Now, I'm about to announce a new project, which will be launched with a crowdfunding campaign on August the 9th. And one of the aspects of that campaign is a piece of music, which I'm not going to play it now, but we have it in the database bank, which is with lyrics written by Richard Dawkins. I don't know whether you're familiar with Richard Dawkins, are you?
Yes, I am. Yeah, actually, it was after the God Delusion book that I actually started calling myself an atheist.
Really? Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to say any more about that? What was it about the God Delusion book that convinced you?
Yeah, actually, I think I was already irrationally convinced before that, but it gave me the courage because atheist is such a loaded word. There's such a stigma.
Yeah.
And I tried to use every single word before that, just not to accept it.
Yeah.
But I think this book just explains it beautifully. Just how atheism is simply the most logical position, like even compared to agnosticism. Like I don't think much of agnostics either. Sorry, but yeah, just this idea you don't avoid denying other gods, like because what agnostics say is you can't deny God and you can't affirm it, but you don't say that about Zeus, about Thor. You don't. The start point is always negation. Yeah. And if there are no evidence, if there's no evidence, then you simply deny it. It's more probable that it doesn't exist. And that was a really important book to me. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Atheist is a loaded word. A lot of people have a really extreme meaning for it. They think that an atheist is a God hater and is purposeless and immoral. They think that an atheist only wants to be an atheist in order to be a naughty person, to have sex all the time.
Well, which is not bad, let's say.
Well, in their minds. In their minds, it is because they like to stick their noses into our genitalia. But so I've tended to, for my personal description, to call myself a non-believer in order to not attract all that muck that people want to throw at me if I say I'm an atheist. But what I really want to do is to normalize the word atheist, because it's the condition we're born in. It should be all right. It shouldn't be an insult, because if it is,
Absolutely.
all those babies are, terrible things, which is ridiculous.
Well, depending on who you ask, these babies are all going to hell unless they get christened in time. So yeah, even that may not be a good argument for them.
No, you're right, because there was a problem in the Catholic Church that you may know of, when a baby died. It was born and then died a couple of days afterwards, before it had been christened by the priest. And then the poor mother was distraught, because she imagined that since it hadn't been christened, that poor baby was going to go to hell and burn for eternity. So what the Catholic Church came up with years ago, I'm talking centuries ago, is a concept that they called limbo. Now, this is not the Caribbean dance where you go under a pole. This is a place that is not quite heaven, but it's not in hell either. It's sort of a waiting room where these babies allegedly end up, because they died before they were christened. Then, last century, the previous Pope, I think Benedict, before he was Pope, when he was merely an important cardinal.
A cardinal.
He was reviewing this policy, and he decided to abolish limbo. So suddenly, because the church came to a new conclusion, this place full of babies who had died before they got christened disappeared.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I kind of liked this previous Pope, Benedict, just because, he'd exposed Catholicism for what it is. Like, myself, I don't believe in reform in Catholicism. I don't believe in reform in Christianity, honestly. Look, if you have got a different interpretation of Christianity that makes it more inclusive, then good for you. But honestly, I don't think that's coherent. Christianity is prejudice, and it is psychological fear. And yeah, go on.
It's been tried, hasn't it? I mean, the reason that there are something like 30,000 different denominations of Christianity is because people have been trying to reform it all these years.
Yeah,
they don't
sometimes
like
to the rest.
it's like, they just take against the particular brand they find themselves in and think, what can I do about this? Well, I'll try a few others, but then mostly they set up a new one.
Yeah, basically. And yeah, what can you do? Just that's why I've decided to cut off religion from my life. But it's still very present in my music. Like my current single, which we'll be playing later. It's called "How Many, How Often," and it talks about precisely that what we were talking about before, like the idea that there is this almighty God that's actually worried about what you do in bed, and his main preoccupation is that, and how demented that is. Yeah. It tends to show up in my, but not only actually, because I'm quite fond of Catholic art. Like when I went to Rome, I did visit the Vatican, and I was like in awe with all the art the Catholic Church has got. I love Catholic music, medieval Catholic music, and it does show up in my music as well. My brother finds it quite bizarre, because whenever we go to a new city, I always want to visit the local Catholic church, because they've just got fantastic art.
Yes. That's one of the big differences between Christianity and Islam, because Christianity embraces art. It embraces fine things, not just paintings, not just architecture, not just music, but everything. You know, fine clothes, fine gold articles, everything. And Islam
not all Christianity. Yeah, no, not all Christianity, because again, like if you go to some,
Yes.
to many Protestant denominations, they're more strict, which is they reject visual arts, for example, which is
Yes.
more in line with what the Bible says. You know, this love of art in the Catholic Church is actually a vestige of paganism, which is why I like it so much. Yeah, but yeah, you know,
Well, you're
Catholic
right, of
sculpture
course.
is a continuation of Greek sculpture. Yeah.
Yes. But you're right, of course. There's so many different denominations of Christianity. You're going to find some that are very austere.
Hmm.
I mean, is it the Hutterites who still behave as though they're in the 17th century, driving around in horse and cart and
Hmm.
and not using electricity
Yeah.
because it's evil. So
Yeah. Yeah.
there is all that.
Absolutely, and also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, but yeah, but also like as we were talking about Islam, like yeah, also you've got many denominations in Islam, and there is some great Islamic art. They also because
Yes.
you know Islam is an interesting religion to me because they've got all these strict rules about sexuality and about art and about everything,
Yes.
but historically they've always found ways around it.
Yes.
So you know they can't draw pictures of living beings, but what they do, which I find amazing, is at least in Arab and Persian traditions, they use calligraphy, sorry, yeah, as a form of art. So they draw living beings with letters, which can make for fantastic art. And actually, if you can see it, like I've got a tattoo here. Let me put it in focus. Oh, I'm trying to show it here.
Oh yeah.
This tattoo of mine,
Yeah.
it's a falcon, and it's a traditional Arab piece of art made up of letters, Arab calligraphy. So this is a kind of art that is accepted by Islam, and Arab music, which is mostly made by Muslims, is also influential in my art.
Yes.
So I like studying religion for its historical and for its historic and artistic value. Like I did study religion in university. I'm a journalist. Sorry, I studied journalism, but I took classes on religious history because it's of great interest to me.
Yeah. Well, you're right, because of course the Islamic world has some fantastic architecture. I mean, those domes and minarets, very tall, thin towers.
Yes.
So tall you can't have a staircase inside them, you know, so thin, I should say.
Yeah.
But in a generality, I think it will be fair to say that they're more disapproving. The Muslim religion is more disapproving than the Christian religion as a generality. What do you think?
Yeah. Nowadays it's true also, because like if you see historically speaking, when it comes to sexuality and diversity, even like tolerance of other religions, historically speaking, Christianity has been much worse than Islam, and that's not. I'm not just being politically correct. Like historically speaking, that's true. From the 19th century on, some more strict interpretations of Islamic law started springing up and becoming popular, which tends to happen in poorer communities because you know Islamic countries used to be richer, and you know due to colonialism and exploitation they've become poorer, and the poorer you are, the closer you are to fundamentalism. That's what happens. And also in the 20th century, the Western world has become more accepting of diversity, and you know because of the fights of marginalized groups because of people like Sylvia Rivera, who rose up and started demanding rights. So nowadays many people have got this distorted view that Christianity is in and of itself more tolerant than Islam, which is not really the case. Nowadays, generally speaking,
but not so much going back a few centuries. No.
Yeah, which is important because, history tends to repeat itself, and there are many people over here in Brazil, for instance, trying to repeat history and take Christianity back to its strict rules.
Yeah. You're
It
right.
could happen. We're fighting against it, but it could happen.
Yeah. Well, I was going on to say that this circular changing goes towards science as well, because if you go back a few hundred years, the Islamic world was right at the forefront in inventing all sorts of, covering all sorts of things too. And then they seem to go into a regression, whereas the Christian church also not only embraced dancing, for example, which the Islamic church doesn't seem to have got to, but they embraced scientific discovery for a while too.
Yes.
So you had the monks being in the forefront of discovering how to do genetics, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's true, because then again, that's where the money was. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Speaking, being really simple, like science and development is where money is, and tolerance usually springs up where money is, where people have conditions, better living conditions.
That's right.
And
but if you're poor, you're more desperate, and so you need God's salvation more.
Yeah, like even look at your country. Like the UK is a much richer country than Brazil, and it's a much less religious country. Like secularism is much stronger, even though officially speaking, it is a theocracy because you've got an established church, which we haven't.
That's crazy, isn't it? History.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we got saddled with that thanks to Henry VIII.
Yes.
He wanted to be the Pope of England, and that's when...
Which he got.
Yes. And that's when, from then on, we've had an established church. But as you say, the last survey, I think, showed that we're 51% non-believers. 51% have no faith, which is definitely the way to go.
Yeah. And myself, I tended to have atheism at the forefront of my campaigning, of my discourse, and of everything. Nowadays, social justice is more important. That's why I became more political and so on, because I've realized that it's all about material conditions, material living conditions. So you've got to fight poverty, you've got to fight injustice, and that's how you actually get rid of intolerance.
Yes, because if people have got a grievance, then they're vulnerable to becoming your sheep.
Manipulated. Exactly.
So I'm now going to play the other YouTube clip that you gave me, and then maybe you can talk to us about that. Or do you want to say something?
I shall.
Do you want to speak about it first, or how it came to you, or shall I just play it and you talk to us about it afterwards?
Let's do this approach now. Play the clip first, and then let's talk about it.
Okay, here it comes.
Understand anything should go wrong, I'm to blame. My heart's defeated, man. You can seem to understand. Anything should go wrong, I'm to blame. Earthquakes, storms, and hurricanes, empires may fall or remain. Any mishap should come, I'm to blame. Laws I must prevent, epidemics, surging trends. Still I must find time to watch your bed. How many, how often, which gender say machine, which positions did you get into? In leather, in wedlock, in shower, having fun, 69 or simply fly. 5-on-1. Revolutions, cues of war, bloody bankers lead the poor. Do more fortune, you know I'm to blame. Mass extinction's no concern. Global warming, lead and ban. Races last or vanish, I'm to blame. Supernovas come and go. Amid comets and black holes, still the only hole I watch is yours. How many, how often, which gender same as you? Which positions did you get into? In leather, in wedlock, in the shower, having fun. 69 or simply 5-on-1. 9 or simply 5-on-1. Which gender same as you? Which positions did you get into? In leather, in wedlock, in shower, having fun. 69 or simply 5-on-1. 69 or simply 5-on-1. 69 or simply 5-on-1. 69 or simply 5-on-1.
I used to have a clap track that I would put on after things like that, but it's gone somewhere else in the software now. Do you know, actually, I prefer that one. I like that number better. It's got an entirely different feel, hasn't it, from the Caribbean one that we played at the beginning. So,
yeah.
How did that come to you?
This one, I remember I had this friend who was a guitar player, and we used to rehearse together. We were planning to start a band. Like, it didn't work out because I moved to another city, but we used to play together. And I remember this one day after rehearsing, we went to a bar, and when we were saying goodbye, he all of a sudden turned to me and said, "Hey, why don't you write a song about the idea that there is a God who's almighty, who's got the whole universe to watch, to care for, but he's actually worried about what you do in bed." And
Yes.
then it just, this sentence stayed in my mind,
Yes.
like on a loop.
Yes.
And I was going, as I was heading back home, it just stayed in my mind, and then the lyrics the lyrics and the melody just started springing up in my mind, and I wrote it in like 30 minutes, I think, in my mobile phone.
Brilliant. And that's climbing the chart at the moment, isn't it?
Not really, not climbing anymore. Now it's going down. It peaked at number 9 on the LGBTQ music chart in the UK. Yeah. Which is like, it's got a different feel to most of the songs. Like, the LGBT scene usually likes dance music and, more pop oriented. This is more of an indie rockish song. Yes. So yeah. But still, I think the message does fit the LGBT fight, and so I submitted it. Yeah.
So what have you got on the back burner for the next number?
I've got another song recorded already. I intend to release it later this year. Yeah. But I haven't recorded the video yet. I've got it written, but I've got to record it. And it's about fascism. It's also a rock tune. Yeah. And it talks about, I try to approach it like not from a condemning standpoint, because I don't know, people tend to think of fascism as something that's really far away from them, that could never happen to but no, actually, fascism isn't this somber thing. Fascism is happy and heroic. That's how it presents itself to you, and I try to approach the topic from this viewpoint.
Yes.
Like to show how fascism can be seducing, how it can seduce you.
Yeah. Well,
Let's see if I succeeded. Yeah.
well, that is an interesting idea because, of course, that's how it happened in Germany. People were,
Yeah, and that's
they were sucked into it, thinking this is a great thing. This, we've got this, all these roads being built, and there's health and happiness going on. They actually built some, not exactly hotels, but holiday resorts, and everybody started getting their own car, and it looked like a really attractive proposition. But
yeah,
you're right. It's not far
and
away.
not only like that. That's how it happened in Brazil. Even like because even today, if you talk to some people about Bolsonaro, many of them think I'm exaggerating when I call him a fascist. And I said, no, darling, just look at his discourse, at his political program, compare it to Hitler's or Mussolini's. Like it's the same. He literally quotes Hitler in his speeches, and people don't realize it.
Oh, yeah. And I suspect that if Donald Trump had had his way,
yeah, it'd be similar.
It's frightening to think what might have happened to the United States of America.
Yeah. Then again, going back to politics, we need to, strengthen popular initiatives. We need, because most politicians, even the ones who claim to be pro-people, they're only serving their own agenda. We need to get more people out there protesting and, putting pressure onto politicians to get things done and to end this social, because fascism arises when civilized life is collapsing, and it's happening now because of greed, because people are destroying the welfare system, because rich people are destroying everything that makes life livable for poorer people, and we need to fight against that.
The trouble is, you can also go too far into populism, into providing what you think the people want, and to such an extent that if you provide what you thought they want, like for example Brexit, then it may not be a good idea.
Then again, I think that's a problem with the media also, because even Brexit, I do follow British media. Like I studied English in England, so I've got a link to England, and I think mostly it comes down to muddled propaganda, because I get many working class people voted for Brexit in Britain, and I get why. They see their lives getting worse. They see political control being taken away, and they need a scapegoat. And this scapegoat is usually foreigners, be they third world migrants, be they the European Union, when that's not actually it. The scapegoat should be I'm using a really Marxist term now, the bourgeoisie. It should be greedy people. And but then again, the media doesn't let people see that. The way they portray it, that's what creates confusion.
Well, if you're rich enough, you can buy your way out of paying taxes. Pretty much out of anything you like, as long as you've got enough money to pay the right lawyers. You can have your own way. Do you know?
Go on.
I was going to say, I don't think we can set the world to rights immediately.
No, it takes time. But actually, what you said there makes sense, and it's a big part of our campaign here in Brazil as well. Like making richer people pay their due taxes, because only then can we actually fund public services in a satisfactory way. And just rebalance society.
Yes. We don't want it polarized. We want everybody close to the middle, so there's no grievance, and then there's no vulnerability. Okay, right. Well, we'll order that up tomorrow then, shall we?
Yeah, yeah.
Ferdinand, you've been fantastic. Thank you very much,
Well,
and thank you.
thanks for having me.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you, people, for watching. And I can't tell you who's going to be my guest next week because I haven't got one. I will get one. Don't worry, there will be one. So look forward to seeing you on this channel at our normal time. That's 20:30 in the UK and other time zones around the world. Ferdinand, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. See ya.